Okay, so hi, Dr. Heinrich. I'm glad we got the technical things taken care of here. Um, so, how are you doing today?
Very well. It's a beautiful day here in Maine. Nice weather. Yeah, spring. Birds are out. Can't be better.
Nice. So, did you get out and go for a walk or anything or a run this morning?
I haven't gone for a run yet. I went for a long one yesterday, and so I'm taking it easy today.
How far?
Oh, I went. Let me see. I went about 10 miles.
Oh, cool. Yesterday, I went to a park and got under a covered area. It was raining.
Hmm.
I got out in the rain a little bit, but I just did an hour and a half or 2 hours of work on some 2x4s.
Oh, uh-huh.
Walking, balancing, squatting, crawling, turning,
Oh.
some with my eyes open,
Hmm.
some closed.
Well, with eyes closed, yeah. I hope it wasn't too far off the ground.
Yeah, but yeah, so I can put two by fours together and um, not
Hmm.
consistently enough yet, but I can walk along those barefoot uh,
Huh.
with my eyes closed and
Huh.
then do a like bear
Huh.
crawl on
Huh.
two by fours with my eyes closed.
Huh. Is that practicing for mountain climbing or what?
Just because I like that kind of exercise
Huh.
and I like exercising outdoors. And
Uh-huh.
so those are the main things, just the experience. And I found that it helps me be like achieve more like a physical optimum and a mental optimum, helps me function better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that I feel that effect definitely with running.
Hmm.
Um, and I get do a lot of things.
We lost you. Can you hear us? Connection was lost. Dang it. Oh, my connection. Okay, so guys, sorry, we have technical difficulty here. They're connected. I lost them both. Okay, I think I'm back. You can hear me, Melanie?
Yes, I can hear you.
Dr. Heinrich, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, my connection um, flitted out, so I lost y'all for a
Hmm.
second. What were y'all
Hmm.
saying about running? Maybe.
Excuse me.
What were y'all saying? Like last few
Oh, I
seconds?
was I was saying I I get refreshed when I run. It clears my mind, and a lot
Hmm.
of times things pop up sort of at random that normally wouldn't pop up because I'm too distracted with other things.
Yeah,
So it's I remember things that I've forgotten otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's
You noticed that, Melanie?
yeah. I used to run like 25 miles a week, and I always
Hmm.
called that the runner's high. I don't know if that you hear about
Uh
that a
huh.
lot, but definitely
Yeah.
there's like the lucidity. There's just this clarity in your thinking that feels like I could
Yeah.
conquer anything. I could cure
Yeah.
cancer. I mean to be extreme, but just isn't that something? How your mind just seems so ultra focused then?
Yes, it is. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, it's I don't know. I think we get used to a groove otherwise, and that just puts us out of a groove,
Hmm.
and it's like getting into new territory. Uh, and when we're free to go for new things because we're not in a groove on a normal in a normal situation,
Yeah.
and so things pop up spontaneously.
Do you feel like some of your insights into your studies and your work that you do you feel like some of that even came to you or has come to you while you've been in those
Yes,
situations?
I mean, I wouldn't run for that as
Yeah.
a means or anything like that. But definitely there are times when something comes up and it says, well, I wish I had a pencil with me so I can remember it and take it with me. And so I have to repeat it over and over while I'm running so that I'll still have it in my head when I get back.
Yeah, funny. But yeah, I found a bit of that too when I'm out running or out for a walk, or if I'd go out horseback riding, a lot of things I was thinking about would snap into place, and I draw some conclusions I was trying to form. Yeah. Or you're working on an essay, and you're struggling with the wording or something, and you're out running, and all of a sudden, that's what I meant to say. And then, oh,
exactly.
That's the perfect word.
That's right. But sometimes by the time I get back, I've forgotten. I said, what was that?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've experienced that a little bit too. But kind of like you, I don't have such a hilly area, but I'm fortunate where I live to have a creek nearby with lots of woods there. So I don't have to run on a bunch of boring flat concrete with a bunch of houses around. I see all kinds of animals and birds, and I love running on trails because that adds to the mental demands on you. If you're running on the flat, it doesn't require as much thought. But when I'm out on these trails, I've got to constantly be watching for roots and snakes, because I don't want to get bit, but even more, I don't want to step on a snake and hurt it. You know? And the texture changes. It rises and falls. There's concrete in the ground sometimes. So you got to be very, very alert.
Dr. Heinrich, how do you manage to preserve your knees after all these years? I'm sure, because I used to, like I said, I ran a lot every week. I would run 20, 25 miles. And, you know, I'm paying the price. I mean, there must have been there's something you're doing that is allowing you to keep going 10 miles and your knees are just fine. Can you give us a little tip on that?
Sure. All the people I know that have knee problems are the ones that have not run. And I, my sister, she's never run a step in her life, and she's had a knee replacement. I just was jogging with another guy yesterday, and says, "Oh, my sister had both knees, and he is, in his 60s." So, and actually, I had a knee problem when I was in my 60s, and I went. I had taken a few years off running and was going to start again and see what I could do at 60, and so I soon had a knee problem, and I went to several doctors, and I was really upset and wanted to see what was up, and they took x-rays and says, you got chondro something, this or that, I forgot the name of it. And she says, you better take up some other sport, because you've been an ultramarathoner, you've run thousands of miles, and you just worn out your knees. Well, it's not true. It's just the opposite. It's from not running that you get knee problems. And a couple of years later, I was running, and I'm running now. I don't have a knee problem, and I'm almost, I'm 79.
Yeah, that's great. Do you run barefoot or in shoes?
No, I use shoes.
Oh.
I go barefoot.
Yeah.
Really?
I love it. Yeah. Been doing that for like 10 years.
Oh, wow. You mean real barefoot?
Real barefoot. No fake shoes, no Vibram Five Fingers, just 100% straight up barefoot. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I tried that when I was in Africa because, there was this guy, I took a year off from college, and that year, a guy named Marchukas from Kenya won the IC4As, and he was running barefoot. So I was over there in Tanzania, and said, well, this is going to be it, running barefoot, And anyway, I did it, and I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. Wow. I wore all the sole off my feet. Wow. It was gravelly and stuff, and so but if you work into it, because people who don't have shoes, they eventually. And when I was a kid, I always was barefoot. I always was barefoot. In the summer, I never wore shoes. But, since then they softened up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of other things, we got to develop step by step into it.
Yeah.
Seems like it should be easy because it's just barefoot, but there's so much human physiology involved in that. It's like blows the mind once you like start to find out about it and think about it. It's like, I never knew this. I thought I could just go barefoot. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems impossible when you can't do it.
Yeah. But like, what's his name? There's a gentleman who used to track and live in South Africa. And he does work on regenerative farming now. But he goes barefoot. He tracked barefoot in Africa. And he says when he's in the U.S., like I think he does U.S. for 6 months, Africa for 6 months, and he says to keep his feet from getting weak, he has to run on gravel while he's here.
And yeah, keep him in condition. Yeah.
And in a book I listened to one time, it said one time he went to bed and his wife was saying there's something scratching on our sheets. What's going on? And he looked and he had a thorn stuck in the bottom of his foot. He didn't even know about.
So can you run barefoot on a tar surface?
Yeah.
Because that's basically all the roads are here are tarred.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I got dirt mostly, but when I did like that 12-mile run I mentioned last time, there was significant portions on asphalt, a little concrete, but then most of it, on like dirt.
Oh.
And then there's a place near Fredericksburg, Texas, in central Texas called Enchanted Rock. I think if I remember right, for the Native Americans there, it was like a sacred site, but it's just broken rock on part of the trail, and then just big, huge rock. And I've been up and down that twice barefoot. But,
yeah, I would think that would be tearing your skin, but
it toughens up.
Obviously not.
Yeah. I got video on YouTube to prove it.
And I've seen it's great. It's really good footage of the trail that Michael runs on. I watched it on YouTube. And you could just see there's like rocks sticking up in really weird patterns and geometric shapes. He's got to maneuver. And I'm thinking because what is the title of your video, Michael?
I don't remember which one.
It's something about consider every step and every...
Measure every step.
Yeah. And it just shows how the mind to be, to run on that, you have to be pretty sharp and aware of what's going on, and how your feet respond to those kinds of steps. And sure. Yeah, it's great. Really good.
So can you get as much power? I mean, when I run, especially downhill, I'm pounding. There's a lot of weight going down, and I'm wondering if it slows you. Do you think runners could run just as fast, let's say, on an asphalt, if they were, or do they have to be kind of pussyfooting around a little bit more to?
That's a good question, because I know in some of the stuff you've written, you've made some good points, or maybe it was a podcast, how maybe people need to have some spikes on some shoes to really get really, really, really optimal performance for speed. But as you know, there still have been some Olympic athletes who've run sprints and marathons barefoot and won the gold medal.
Yeah, Baby Bikila from Ethiopia, I think it was. Yeah. Yep.
So. That's interesting. But.
We did it for millions of years, so.
Yeah.
Doesn't it just put a perspective on it?
Yeah.
It seems to.
And then, of course, that's what the persistence hunters said to do. They went all barefoot.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. But, and that's one thing, I don't know. If I could find a shoe that wasn't so confining, maybe I'd experiment with that. But I just really, really, really don't like shoes. It might be interesting
Mm.
to
Mm.
do some sprints and go barefoot versus with some spikes and see how the timing was. But
Yeah, yeah. I know in track, remember we had Adidas shoes and they had
mhm,
spikes, small spikes, and we had, like a cinder track, and we had cross country, we had just hard rubber flats, the black shoes with a single rubber sole,
mhm,
and uh, so I definitely felt that with spikes we could run faster
hmm,
on the track because you really dig in, and so the other ones were like better on a woods path or something like that,
yeah,
where you would not want to have the spikes probably, unless there were places where it might be slippery.
mhm,
Uh,
yeah.
but so the surface might make a difference.
And I wonder to what extent using your feet more would help. Because I've heard that some people in some primitive cultures use their feet a lot more than like Americans do. They use them for different things to grab, to lift, to climb,
Uh-huh.
to hold onto
Uh-huh.
trees.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's right. Yep,
so maybe
yep,
there's some
yeah.
features there that come into play
Mm.
that allow
Mm-hmm.
them to grip the ground without
Mm-hmm.
needing spikes or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I'm sure that again is learned. You probably develop more muscles in your toes when your toes are in direct contact with the substrate and actually kicking off more.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Then I think I've heard some people have, or maybe it was their hands, but some people, maybe it's using their hands more for climbing and stuff. They got a layer of skin on the palm of their hand and the bottom of their fingers, just like people have on the bottom of their
Uh-huh.
sole when they go barefoot and vice
Uh-huh.
versa.
Mm.
But interesting.
Yeah.
But did you get out and take a walk and see some birds and plants and animals this morning?
Well, I mean, I have a half mile path going down to the road, so I don't automatically see animals there. I mean, I might see a moose once a
Hmm,
year,
nice.
and a bear every 5 years,
Hmm,
uh, if I'm really lucky, and deer a couple of times. I mean, just don't expect to go out in the woods here and see animals all over the place. It's not like the Serengeti in Africa. Uh,
too bad.
but you do notice things. The few things that draw your attention, like today, for the first time, I heard ovenbirds sing. So they just came back now, uh, last day or two, and in the morning you hear different woodpeckers, and
Yeah.
I watched the phoebe is just starting to build its nest, gathering mud. So you notice the little things,
Hmm.
and and uh, and look out for them.
Yeah.
And so you always wonder how it is from one day to the next. You always see something new, hear something.
Yeah.
But I didn't specifically go out looking this morning, not this morning. I got stuff to do at the desk too.
Yeah. I was out for easy 2.5 this morning and I saw a little, maybe 8-inch decays brown snake in the trail.
Hmm.
Caught that, held it for a little
Mm-hmm.
while, looked at it, made a video,
Mm-hmm.
then released it
Mm-hmm.
into the shrubbery.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
saw a blue heron in the creek when I was on
Huh.
this overpass. I tried to
Uh-huh.
get a picture and video, but they're
Uh,
so
uh,
wary that it flew
mm,
away before I could even get my camera out.
mm, mm.
Those
Well, that
guys.
reminds me.
Go
Yeah,
ahead. What?
yeah. Uh, So, what kind of a camera do you have? Do you have a telephoto or what?
No, I just use the camera on my iPhone.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
I like that for one reason. I mean, it'd be nice to have a better one to get some
Yeah.
pictures of things far, but I like having the phone because it makes it a challenge to
Yeah.
get pictures of butterflies and dragonflies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of my fitness training to stock up on them and take a picture and go back.
Yeah. Yeah, those are nice. Yeah.
And then I can carry it on a run, whereas it'd be hard to carry a big camera.
Hmm. Yeah, I never thought of carrying a camera with me
Yeah.
on a run.
Yeah, I've kind of had my way kind of forced into it, and just something I kind of stumbled upon and turned out to be a really good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I should try it.
But
Yeah.
and I use it to measure my runs sometimes. How far, how fast.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't have the expertise yet to know how to operate my iPhone.
Yeah, they're easy. They're user friendly.
Yeah.
But go
Not,
ahead. What?
yeah, I was going to say I have a little camera. I don't even know what the name of it is, but it works just fine. And I really don't carry it around that much unless I'm going specifically for looking for something out there in the woods. And I usually, when I'm running, I'm running, and that's it. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I can look in the distance, but I'm not going to be stopping taking pictures.
I can't help it.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, so speaking of nature and stuff, like one thing
Uh-huh.
we wondered what ideas you had on like Melanie's kids in particular, but kids in general, when they go when they go camping or into the wilderness or in a nature camp, like we're wondering what Melanie's kids could do this summer. So last summer they went to Camp Minigen for a week. It was a week, right, Melanie?
Right. 1 week.
And
Yep.
so tell us about it. Like they're out in the wilderness, no cell phones or anything, right?
Yeah, when they first get to the camp, they give them an evening of kind of orientation, and mainly it's really downsizing everything they brought into what they can carry for the next week on their back. And so some are given the food to carry, some have to help carry and portage the canoes, some have to carry the tents, and it's a sleeping bag, and that's it. There's no structures out in the woods. So, and so they really, in 1 week, they figured out, I think, pretty well, what it's like to just have to take or be have what you brought with you. There was no storage unto, there's no internet, none of that. So now they have 2 weeks ahead of them because they liked it so much they signed up for the 2-week camp. But I feel like with 2 weeks they could maybe actually do a little more than just experience it and come home and like it. But maybe if you had some thoughts about some things they could kind of try to do in these 2 weeks and come away all the more savvy about the outdoors and the woods and stuff like that. Yeah, and science.
So how old are they?
The oldest, my boy, is 16, and then the girl, she's 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good age to get them out there on a week trip or 2 weeks. That's fantastic. So you're doing like a river or something, or what?
Well,
Canoe.
Yeah, have you heard of the Boundary Waters? I'm sure in Minnesota.
Oh, in Minnesota?
Yeah. We're located in Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah. So
yeah, I've heard of the Boundary Waters up there in Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very remote, untouched, very pristine, and so nothing goes in and is left. You take everything out with you that you brought. So
Yeah.
And they
But
canoe on the lakes. Is that it? They start at one place and they got to canoe to one
yeah,
camp and then canoe on the lakes to another.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
they cover quite a bit of territory and get real deep into it. And they have
Yeah.
to carry their canoes across the parts that can't, support a canoe trip. So the water's too
Hmm.
shallow.
Wow. Well, that's a really neat thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
So what they could do? I mean, they probably uh, uh, traveling on the water. If they have canoes, they're probably traveling along a lot of the time, right?
Hmm.
Or do they get out and explore in the woods in some places, or is that where they stop for lunch or evening and make a camp?
Yeah. I think they stop in time to set up a tent and kind of enjoy the evening. So they do have some time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But does the
Uh,
adult guide take them around to explore, or they're on their own, or what?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. I'm not sure.
hmm.
But it's not like the guides. They're just out for the adventure. Is the guide teaching them much about wildlife and science and biology? I don't remember him doing much of that.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you recommend?
Yeah. Oh. Uh, um, well, I'm trying to think. I've done a couple of river trips like that. Right after college, I went down the Allegash River to the St. John, and we put in on a lake. Uh, it was, I think, a day or two away. Then I went down the Noatak with a bunch of friends, and we took, I think, a couple of weeks. And I was interested in birds specifically, and it was spring, and I wanted to see the different birds nesting, and I tried to, take pictures, get a collection of, flower pictures and bird pictures and birds' nests. Uh, and others were interested in more, seeing grizzly bear or caribou or stuff, or fishing. It's good to have, at least some options. I didn't know fishing was going to be that interesting, but it turned out it was, and then we had them, for supper. So that's really neat to be kind of provisioning on your own on the way.
Yeah.
Like if it's in the fall, you could also be picking berries and so kind of living off the land a little bit. So I don't know what happened in the boundary waters. It might be all protected, so you can't take anything. I'm not sure. I mean, with a lot of traffic up there, probably.
Good point.
But uh, but maybe to have some guidance would be good. To aware of what is potentially there, so that they have their eyes out for certain things. Now so somebody that knows what some of the birds are, maybe have a guide along, or know something about the kinds of trees and water plants, and seems like different interests could be lighted by just introduction rather than just plain paddling all the time. If you can get some awareness brought up of some of the things around them.
Right. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe some things I didn't think of on my own, but more from reading like Dr. Heinrich's books and thinking about some of the things he does. You could think about, maybe have the kids think, if they find a berry bush, how many berries are on the bush, and what's the kind of density of the berries, and how often do you find them? Maybe they could sketch out a map and then record on their hand-drawn map where they found the berry bushes and what they were.
Yeah. Well, if they could, relate it to something, that would be nice. With the kind of birds that they see and what kind of birds might be feeding on them.
Yeah.
Or if they are flowers, what kind of bumblebees do they see? how do you tell the difference? If it's in the summer, that's always a nice conspicuous different pollinators. Think about pollination of what produced the berries, and where are the bumblebees now? Maybe there are other flowers in bloom, and so again, you're tying the berries in with the birds. And you tying the berries in with the bees and the flowers. Anything to look at it from the perspective of different season and in the context of the whole ecosystem.
Then maybe they could think about try to observe and see if there's a difference in bird or animal behavior throughout the day.
When depends on how many animals you see. On the Noatak, as I recall, we only saw one grizzly, so there wasn't much comparison. But maybe with birds, different birds might. You have to have a certain number in order to be able to make some comparisons. So, but you could, for that example, make comparisons, for example, with plants, perhaps, from one lake to another, or from, different kinds of water plants or different kinds of water. Speculate as to, what kind of fish are here versus there.
And maybe,
but insects are always, it's something that's always plentiful is insects, especially mosquitoes and black flies. So even those could be kind of, they could have good comparisons at different times. Matter of fact, I once did a little study and never published it, but I was wondering about mosquitoes, when they're out and why they're out at certain times. And it seemed like they were out at night, and so I thought about the dragonflies were the predators of the mosquitoes. So when are they going to be out? And is that the time when the mosquitoes are going to be not out if they couldn't possibly be? So, what's the chicken and what's the egg here? What affects what? But, and the dragonflies have to be catching mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes have to be trying to escape them. So it's interesting things, what kind of density do they need before they're out hunting? And, the dragonflies seem to mostly be hunting in the evening, as I recalled anyways, when the mosquitoes were starting to come out. So, anything that looks like it's abundant, so they can get repetitive observations just to see if they can start to get a pattern.
I was thinking about bird song, Dr. Heinrich, and maybe like if they listen to a few recordings of what birds around our area sound like, or that area, they could kind of recognize when they hear them.
Cool.
The less mechanical interference, the better, of course. If you had somebody who knows the birds and could guide them, that's a little bit more authentic when the leader actually knows what's going on and what's there. Maybe study up beforehand, what they could potentially find.
Right, exactly.
And then if Leo and Kira know enough, maybe they can teach the guide and the other campers what the birds are.
Yeah.
And that'd be good for their confidence. That'd make them feel great,
Yeah.
I mean, remember when you were like 14 or 16 and you could teach other people stuff?
Yeah. Well,
it's you have pride to know some things that the others don't, and pass that on. It's always great. It gives them an impetus to learn something. And there's kind of a little competition going on as to who can see this first and who will be the first to see this gnatcatcher or whatever and recognize it. So maybe if they had some information beforehand, what they might potentially see, that would, open their eyes up, open their ears, and get them started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've done some of that in science class, and then since they were there last year, they know. So we were going over I was showing them plants in my area via video link up, and we were talking about it and recognizing them, and we've done some of that recently, and I've given them resources that they could look up plants in their area, and I told them what berries they might find up there at what time of year, and
good.
some birds, and then I had them write, before they went to Camp Menigen, I had them write a multi-page fiction story about what is it going to be like there. So I had them make up a story about, okay, this is what happens the first day, this happens the second day, and I required them to put in plants and animals and describe them and say what's going on, and we went through multiple drafts on that. It's not like, just do whatever you want and turn it in and we're done. They gave me something, I marked it up, I sent it back, they redid it, they sent it to me, I marked it up, I sent it back to them, they changed it, they sent the third draft back to me, and I don't know, what did we do, Melanie, like 5 drafts? 6 drafts?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Because you wanted them to put science in as well, not just make up a story. We did this, we did that, but you wanted them to have a scientific basis for some of the stuff they said was going to happen. And that made them think. They had to actually do a little research and figure out how that would work. So, yeah, it was great. It was really good. Not only, I have to toot your horn for you, Michael, not only did Michael have them do the paper thing, but he actually gave them some workout things to do so that they were physically ready to, carry a canoe and a large backpack. And both of the kids said that they were so glad they did that because they were still tired. They were still pretty pushed to the limits because of walking and canoeing all day and carrying heavy stuff. But had they not had those exercises and just came from city life, which is nothing like that, it would have been they probably wouldn't have made it. They were thinking. So, that was really great. That they were
doing this stuff called MoveNat, MOVNAT, a system of physical training and movement. And so we were really breaking things down and going from the basics and developing things logically to work muscles and joints and agility and the nervous system. So we were working on sitting in different ways, getting up off the ground in different ways, crawling, balancing, throwing, catching, jumping, running, all kinds of different things. And little Kira, she said, Melanie, did she say every day she carried a canoe? What? It was like you got some little rig to carry it on your shoulders or something, but she said it weighed like, she thought 100 pounds. So she was portaging this little girl portaging this, like, I don't know, 50 or 100 pound canoe for like a quarter mile or so.
I don't think it was 100, I think it was like 60, but around 50. But there's a way that the canoe is set up so that you can actually rest it on your shoulders. And but there's a technique to getting the canoe off the ground onto you. There's a way that you do that, and it takes some coordination, but she enjoyed it. And you were saying how if you know something other people don't know, it gives you kind of a little bit of a nice boost in your self-esteem. Well, she was able to carry it where a lot of her campmates couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it really was. She's in good shape.
Yeah. Learn a skill and be proud of it. Yeah. That's what they like to do. Yeah. So you have those kids in your they go to the school, is it that you have, or what is that?
I homeschool. Yeah, I homeschool my 3 kids. So, and the Camp Menogen is it's a camp that's been around for 30 or 40 years. and
Oh.
their father went to it when he was a boy and really liked it,
Oh.
and so
Oh.
decided to have them go as well and try it out, and
Mm.
they liked it. So yeah. But these are my three kids, and I homeschool them. So that's how Michael and I got connected, because I wanted him to teach them science.
Uh-huh.
So he does that via Skyping from Texas. So yeah, really that's how they learn, is by, we homeschool, and that's their educational.
Oh. Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I was curious about something else, Dr. Heinrich, about the woods and being out there so much. Do you ever find you need to rely on certain things in order to find your way out, or do you just know the woods in the area so well that you could find your way out blindfolded? I'm just thinking of the kids going into such new territory, and sometimes they go off in pairs or by themselves. Just curious if you had some thoughts on what you use to make your way around.
Well, I know I've got lost in my own woods, in a snowstorm, get totally turned around when you can't see the sun or anything. And I've ended up coming out where I went in. I was totally confused, so I was very scared. And once I was tracking a deer, and it was in the snowstorm too. And it was very dangerous because the snow was coming down so fast. Pretty soon I realized the track behind me would be covered up, and so I just barely made it back. I just barely followed my tracks. I mean. When you can't see any sun, there's no way to know. You have not the slightest idea what direction is what. So yeah, it's so the weather is very important. I think if the sun's up, you automatically kind of orientate, even though you're not conscious. But if it's flat, of course, makes a big difference. If there's mountains there, that's something else. What the slope is, and so on. But I think it would be scary if it's relatively flat, and definitely have to have a compass.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I guess one thing is the kids gotta be really mindful of where they're starting and pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, we're starting from this lake. I'm going here. And I know if they do have a camera they can take pictures with, or a notebook they can write stuff down with, I know in the past that's helped me find my way back from something. Like, I went to a park I hadn't been to before, and I'm walking down this trail going really far, and because I'm interested in nature and I'm familiar with it to some extent, I'm paying attention to things as I'm going. I stop and look at this oak tree. I stop and look at this opening with some grass in it. I look at this and that. Oh, here's a hackberry tree. God, this is a big one. And I'm walking down the trail, and then I'm walking back, and I'm like, wait, which way do I go? Oh, the oak tree. Yeah, I go this way. I remember looking at the oak tree. I was there for like 5 minutes looking at it, processing it. And so if they're being very observant when they're walking out, then that'll help them find their way back.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And once they get lost, they're going to be even more observant the next time.
Very high alert.
Right, exactly.
But see, I had some good ideas, like in terms of what to do when they're out there, in terms of nature. When are the mosquitoes out? When are the dragonflies out? Why are the dragonflies out here?
Yeah.
Oh, look, they're like skimming around. They're getting mosquitoes? I didn't know that. Wow. Because just because someone else knows doesn't mean it's not new for the kids, and they're learning it on their own,
That's right. They should be observing it on their own. Discovering it on their own is the best way.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, 'cause it's fascinating. Like, that's some things I've learned about deer. I'm driving to a park one day, and I see this deer off in some woods behind this fence on the side of the road, and it's standing up on its hind legs, and I'm like, whoa, deer eat Yukon holly? I didn't know that. They stand up on their hind legs to reach some stuff. Like, whoa, that's a new thing for me. That was so cool.
Yeah.
And then knowing about Yupon holly, I know that the leaves have caffeine in them. It's like the only natural source of caffeine in Texas. And so they're ingesting a little caffeine. The deer in the morning needing its coffee.
Getting their morning caffeine.
Yeah.
I never heard of that.
Huh. And saw one eating American elm leaves the other day. I didn't know that. And when I was down near the creek one day, I saw some deer prints, and it came across the creek, went under a fallen tree. Instead of going up the steep creek bank right away to get some vegetation, it veered off to its left, passed under a branch, and ate some alligator weed before it moved on. I didn't know they ate alligator weed. It's pretty cool. But so yeah, like some stuff Dr. Heinrich does in his books. Look at the density of berries, the type of berry, what eats it. In my area, it'd be easier to see some tracks because of the sand. I don't know if they could see raccoon tracks up there in Minigen in case something's eating the berries. But
yeah.
What are some, Dr. Heinrich, what are some questions they might ask of like birds and insects, in their own minds so they can investigate?
So where are you talking about? And what what is the activity?
In Minigen,
you're talking about on a camping trip, you mean, or what?
Yeah, when they're in Minigen for 2 weeks.
I mean, they're not all on their own, right? You have an instructor with them, or how does that work?
How many people are in the group, Melanie? Like Kira went with how many, and Leah went with how many?
Yeah, I think there were like 8
in
total with a guide. Yeah, and it's a guide just that knows, where they're going and how to get back, but not sure of scientific the background. So hard to say.
Yeah.
But
it's like 6 people pretty much all alone in their woods, right?
Yeah. Very.
And how long are you out?
They'll be out just a day to the camp to get the orientation, and then have one day when they get back to have like a big feast and shower and get all cleaned up to come home. So they really are out about 2 weeks, completely.
No, I mean on your. You're talking about nature walks?
No, like doing the camp management thing where they're canoeing from one camp to another with like 6 other people and adult guide. They're
doing the canoeing.
Yeah, no cell phones in sheer wilderness, all alone, cooking their own meals on fires.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be pretty busy with the paddling, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to be stopping. They're not going to be stopping unless there's a good reason for it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I mean, it'd be nice if they would, explore, and take a break here and there where there's some good-looking woods and see if they see tracks. I don't know, and sample, some water insects or catch some water insects or in general, maybe look at flowers and see what insects are there and what birds. And again, see if anybody knows what they're seeing and teach each other. But if they're straight from the city, they're probably going to need a lot of guidance in what to look at and for. So somebody that has some familiarity with the area and what to expect, so know what to look for. Like I said, being kind of alerted to what they might see and where they might see it. But it looks like the emphasis is just in covering distance, right? Mostly.
Yeah, they do put on. I should know this. I don't know how many miles they'll go, but it is. It's a fair amount, especially for 2 weeks. That's That's going to be quite a trip.
Yeah, they got a lot of traveling to do. They gotta use their muscles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're probably pretty exhausted, but and have to pay attention to the paddles or whatever, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I think one thing they need to do is learn to paddle really well so they can automatize that a little bit and then spend a little more time looking around in their environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like when I bring people out on the trails to run, I want to have them look at the ground first, pay attention to every step, and then when you get better at it, then you can start looking more up and around.
Mm-hmm.
But at first, you got to pay attention to like where every foot's going to be placed.
Yeah.
Similar with paddling.
Yeah.
There's so much technique. You got to pay attention to what your body is doing, where the paddle's going.
Yeah.
But then.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be telling them to be out there bird watching if they have to be heavily paddling.
Yeah.
But of course, they're going to be taking breaks too and relax for a while, and that'd be the time to look around and just see what they can see. I mean, yeah.
And the idea you have of like talking to other people in the group and kind of competing with them or cooperating with them to see what they can do, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the first one to see this or that? Or make a list of different things seen. Make maybe different categories and see who finds them first. It's something that we did in school, but on our own. But of course, if they're in a group, there might be even more competition. Who is the first one to see a American merganser on the water, or a wood duck, or a Canada goose, or a mallard, or whatever, or different birds that can be seen along the way. That's a good idea, just to make a list of see who sings the first. Different trees. Okay, here's a spruce tree. Here's a fir tree, and here's a maple, or whatever. And then they might have to, pick a branch and see what it is. But, make an inventory of all the different plants they see, or make an inventory of the different birds or mammals or sign, and give a name to each one listed, the name who identified it first or who saw it first, something like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Then maybe.
And that way, if they have something to bring home to, that the experiences or sights or sounds or maybe just experiences, the best paddler or or the best whatever category they could invent. So just let them at it, But keep a record of what happened or what was seen. Experience.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, what was experienced, you never know. How many times they tipped over. Whatever happens.
Yeah.
Or like Dr. Heinrich and others do, like Darwin, maybe the kids could keep a nature diary going every day.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And then and then that's like,
or maybe have teams, like have one team, 3 or 4, make a diary, another. Or, otherwise, you'd have so many diaries. Or you could potentially have everyone make their own diary, or you could have teams. That way, they can talk about what they're seeing and get input from each other. And somebody be the scribe for one part, another be the scribe for another part time.
Yeah.
Last year, I'll say quick, Kira was kind of like the designated photographer. So she took a lot of pictures, and then and got everyone's email address, and then she sent out the photos of their trip to everybody. So she's kept in touch with those cameras from last.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. something like that. Yeah,
So that's a good way to go.
Okay.
yeah,
It's like a photo diary along with
yeah.
the
Yeah.
written.
Good.
But yeah, but you could do the same thing with experiences or
Yeah.
animals seen, and then at the end, everyone gets it, which includes everybody's potential inputs, and so they would then be competing to have it included, their contribution
Right. Yeah.
by name. Yeah.
Who sees like the most or the first of whatever a day, or who sees the most in a day, the most birds, the most species, or through the whole
Yeah.
camp, who sees the most stuff, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Melanie,
And
were you gonna? What?
this could be brought to the teachers level here in the cities. We're city people, but a teacher could have this as part of her science curriculum, where kids are assigned from the classroom to go out now at this time of year, especially when everything's coming in bloom, and they keep a journal. They can maybe bring pictures to the class. I mean, we're trying to keep sort of an idea here. How can teachers benefit, from all of your knowledge too, Dr. Heinrich? And I think that's a great idea for even just a local school teacher to do.
Yeah, I think that would be a great curriculum for the schools. I think it should start to jumpstart interest in biology
In science.
and the environment, and I think that would prepare them for later academic aspects in biology, animal classification or behavior or ecology, but it has to start from some observations and original, contact and recording. I mean, I think I started doing that with respect to birds and also with plants, and it's kind of stuck with me. I kind of still do it in a different way, but I'm still kind of a lister, looking for things all the time. You get in the habit to keep your eyes open to look for new things, or the same things in a different way. And the journal is about the only way to make it real. If you just on a little scrap of paper, you lose it. I mean, you've got to have a regular journal and try to become systematic about it. And it's like keeping a memory. You can keep that forever.
Right. Yeah. Great.
And one thing people could do is get the iNaturalist app. I use that a lot. That helps you keep your pictures of your nature observations in one place, and it's connected with people all around the world. There's, ordinary people like me, but there's scientists and specialists on there also. People help you identify what plant or insect or animal it is. And then there's a field in there where you can take notes. So if you wanted, you could say what the animal was doing, what the temperature was, what the weather was. You could take a picture of the maybe insect up close and then further back, so you get the general area. And so that'd be a really good addition to a diary. I think it's important to write things down on your own by hand.
Yeah.
But both of those together would probably be even better than one alone.
Yep.
And then, as y'all say, like it'd be good for teachers to do this, as we talked about before, and as Dr. Heinrich said, I mean, who gets interested in a molecule?
Yeah.
But for the periodic table, they're great, they're important to know, but it should come later in your education, not when it usually does.
Right. Yeah.
But Yeah, and
that
then
relates to mechanisms, how things work, but you got to have something to think about that's working first.
yeah, right, true. Like, why does it matter? What's a bigger picture? What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Melanie?
So, Dr. Heinrich, what would you say the main difference then between being a biologist versus a naturalist would be? I mean, maybe that's a lot to talk about all of a sudden, but just what would be, like, would the people that are doing these types of things, like keeping a journal and making lots of observations, would they fall into? Go ahead.
And that's a good question. What's the difference between a naturalist and a biologist? I think a naturalist is a biologist. I think a biology is just about covers about everything, and a naturalist is a biologist who I think of a naturalist as more someone who is out in the field more and has a broader interest. A biologist could be somebody who is just interested in how the hormone thyroxine works or something like that. It can be very, very specialized, but they're categorized into physiologists and ecologists and evolutionary biologists, myrmecologists studying ants, ornithologists studying birds, mammalogists studying birds, mice and mammals. So anyway, biology is incredibly large, and on one end it's molecular biology, and the other end I would say it's more ecology, the broader picture, and that's where a naturalist fits in. Starting out looking at the larger picture of what we actually experience with our own senses, without the aid of microscope. But of course, a naturalist would use a microscope too. Of course, if you were studying, let's say, algae or some other small organisms. But it's more hands-on, I would say, in the sense of real hands, rather than with instruments in between for the most part.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then a naturalist still asks why, right? It's not like a naturalist is nature listing. It's not just writing stuff down. It's like it's inherent in being a human to want to know why and how things relate, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what all biologists should be doing too, as well. They always ask why or how. So the why relates to evolution, and the how relates to physiology and behavior. So a molecular biologist has questions too. Else she wouldn't be a scientist, because that's what science is about. It's for looking at problems. And the naturalist certainly looks at problems just as much as anyone else, any other scientist, I think.
Yeah, agreed. But, yeah, so it's unfortunate. There's just like, you get the same thing in math. There's some people who think they're mathematicians and they're theoretical, and they disdain the applied mathematicians. Like, you're getting your hands dirty. That's so, And unfortunately, like in biology, there's some people who like look down on the naturalist as like being beneath them or something, and I think that's a really philosophically invalid and errant idea.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that has, I think, biased teaching, because we think if it's molecular biology, if you're looking through a microscope, the bigger it is, the more you are a biologist, and the less it is, the less you're a biologist. I think that that's wrong. I think there should just a level that you're looking at, but there's not. I don't see any hierarchy about it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah. There tends to be, though, like fashions that change. I remember when I was a grad student, there was a lot. If you were mathematical, then everything was an equation in biology, and that's what made it biology. But it was a phase, and it wears out, and one phase leads to another phase. There are kind of fashions that go along, but like I said, it all starts from watching.
Yeah, it's all based on experience.
Experience, yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that's the basis of science, and I think it's unfortunate. It seems like even though someone can experience something, sometimes I think it's because of the way we're educated more than anything else that some people don't think something's real unless like some scientist says it. But science is based on experience and evidence of the senses in the real world, not vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, of course the senses are inadequate in many ways, but that's where you start. And you can sharpen the senses in different ways, by more observations or by longer binoculars. You can't look at the moon without a big telescope, etc. But you have to, have that instrument for a reason to look at something, and then you can make sense of it. But it's just a matter of more intimate observation, and by getting closer. If you can walk there, why, it might be easier than to use. If you can look at it with a telescope, then you don't have to walk there. So you can use the instrument for direct observations, and just facilitates it in some ways.
Yeah.
But the point is, we can see a lot with our own eyes.
And should practice, sharpen your senses, learn to observe, learn to be more observant.
Yeah. So anyway, what are we talking about? What is this all for? Just is this something recorded and broadcast or something, or what?
Yeah. I want to.
You're kidding. You're going to pick out different things, or what?
No, it's like we want people to have ideas about taking care of their own kids, things they can use in education, and like you'd be surprised. I have a friend who listened to your last podcast, and he said he was actually feeling down and depressed, but he listened to your podcast, and he said it made him feel like living again. He said he wished he could be there to like be in Maine, and he'd love to have like a fireside chat with you. I swear, I kid you not. I have it in my text messages.
So that was actually broadcast, huh?
Yeah.
So I was talking to people, God knows where, when I was sitting on my couch up there in the cabin.
Yeah, forever. Because that's one thing I think this is important for documenting scientists and good scientific thinking for ourselves and the public and people who want to learn that. How to be more first-handed in their thinking, be more scientifically original and creative, and make science a part of life.
Well, I think it for the scientists themselves, I think it would be more fun, if it comes also from their experience of what they're actually doing. In other words, if if I could talk about, what I was doing with swallows, or how I was studying ravens, or, how I knew what grouse did in the wintertime, how do we know? And, all of the experiments that and the observations that went into making the conclusions. I mean, these are things that the public doesn't know about too much because they don't read the scientific literature. And some of the scientific literature, for me, anyways, it's adventures. It's going out there, out on a limb, so to speak, and getting a view that you wouldn't necessarily get from the ground, but you get a lot of view from the ground. But if the scientist goes to a lot of trouble and expense to get to a certain place where they see what others don't. So it's also important to show, what everybody necessarily is not going to see. I mean, I'm just publishing a book on tree swallows. I watched them for 8 seasons, and I've been out there all day long watching tree swallows. Now, nobody in the world other is going to do that. They can go out there and watch a little bit of it, but they wouldn't get the overview of seeing all of that. And and only now, for example, after I've written the book, that I read it again and it kind of come together, and I had insights that I didn't have until years later. And they were not, profound insights or anything like that, just kind of simple realizations that, this is what's happening. And somebody might think it's just off the top of the head, but it involved all of this prep work that came from just general interest of being out there and watching, and gradually seeing that, there's a question, because I watched this here last year and it was this, and this year it was that. What's going on? And then you have to watch it another year and another year, and now it's starting to make sense, because a lot of these things you can't watch continuously. The hawk flies by and it's gone, and the swallow is there and then it's gone. And you get a specific situation where you can watch it where most people will not have had the chance to do it because they didn't have a bird box right by their door, etc.
And I think it's important, for people to see that for a variety of reasons. So let me see 2 or 3 things I can think of. For one thing, kids need to learn what science really is. Unfortunately, the way it's taught, because of too much Platonism, it's just these abstract ideas divorced from reality, and that's how math is taught. And that's why for generations people have said in math class, when are we ever going to use this? Or in physics, when are we ever going to use this? And it's not the material that's the problem. It's more, okay, the teachers, a lot of them, they're the best at heart. They're trying. Unfortunately, they're kind of undercut or whatever by some of the Platonic methods they're using. If they would get more real with it, or talk about experience and develop from that, and learn physics from the evidence of the senses and experience, it dramatically changed how they looked at science, and then people would see it's part of life.
Definitely, that's right. It starts from experience.
And it doesn't detract from education. It makes it better. Just like I think some people with horses, some things I read about horses, some people, we got to get it done right away. Beat the horse, do this, throw the saddle on right away. And then that causes problems down the line. It doesn't achieve what you want. If people go a little slower at first, earn the trust of the horse, follow the identity of the horse and work with it, then they have beautiful results. They move together in harmony as if they're one. The horse trusts. You can do so much more. You don't got all these conflicts or this risk of injury in the future, because you both you prove to the horse you both want to survive, and you love it, and you'll take care of it, and it'll trust you.
You've got to get to know it, to love it, before you will protect it and do well together. So the same way with what you do with a horse, it's the same way, treating nature or anything else.
True. And then I think some of this stuff we've been talking about, if people look at what we did here and what some scientists are doing, you can apply it to other areas, like maybe they can learn from Dr. Heinrich or others about birds or the swallow or the raven, but you think, okay, what are we doing here? What are some questions we're asking and all that? You're around your kids every day. If you learn that being a scientist is like a passionate love for the world and life, and you want to know why things work, apply that to your kids. If people look at science, the way it's normally taught is some kind of unfeeling, like physical thing that's just like abstruse and hard to understand, they're not going to apply science to parenting. But if they understand it's a beautiful thing that helps you do better in the world, then apply science like that to parenting, and you can do a better job. Or to teaching. Like Dr. Montessori, she said every teacher should be a scientist.
That's right. It's a matter of getting closer to it. That's what science is all about. It's getting closer to the subject and understanding it and being more intimate with it. And making it part of your life.
True.
Apply science all the time.
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah.
Exercise, running, foraging, tracking, being in nature, driving my truck.
Everything. It involves our health and our well-being, and it's application all the time.
And
all the time.
Here's an interesting story you might like. I don't know, but and this is something that I think shows how our thinking develops. And just like you mentioned earlier, Dr. Heinrich, with your birds, you see one thing, and years later you find something else, and years later you see this. But one thing I found is, okay, so I wanted to be on the trails and run. In MoveNat, they point out that if you're on natural ground, it's not flat, so you've got to change the way you step. And then you got to be more alert and aware, and that affects your nervous system and brain. So I do that. And then I remember, Gibson, the great evolutionary psychologist, says that perception doesn't occur statically. Perception for animals happens when you're moving through your environment. So movement and perception come together. So, and he said he studied fighter pilots and found that the best ones looked around in their environment more. So, okay, I want to develop myself even more, so I'm going to start looking to my left and right and above me, like look into the woods to my left, in on my right, look down on the trail, look ahead, look up, to move my eyes more, to take in more information. And I'm doing that. And then I'm listening to some podcast years later, because like the Gibson stuff I read like 20 years ago. The MoveNat stuff maybe 10 or 5 or something. And then a few years ago I heard a podcast. Someone's talking about how some people deal with, like you got a therapist who takes care of people who've had traumatic experiences. And I heard that some therapists, while the patient's awake, they have the patient do rapid eye movement. And they found that helps the person who had a traumatic experience deal with it and recover from it. And they think that it's because rapid eye movement occurs while we're sleeping. And that's one thing we do to take in, to process things in life. And so then it occurred to me, whoa.
That's interesting.
I'm looking around on the trail real fast, looking left and right and trying to like move my vision real fast and still maintain my balance and focus and take in this information. I'm doing this like kind of like simulated REM maybe that's possibly helping me process difficult times or traumas from the past.
So, that's really interesting because it sounds a little bit like they say, if you smile, physically try to smile, put your mouth into a shape of smiling, you're actually feeling better
Yeah,
and
I've heard
relaxing
that.
more.
Yeah.
And supposedly, there's some runners who, deliberately try to smile just to be relaxed.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
So
and
fun.
actually run better.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And so
Very
that's
cool.
something people
Yeah.
for you to see how
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
leads to another.
Yeah, I've tried that myself, and I'm going to smile, and I actually find my mood changing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Rather, yeah, they're connected. The expression is actually connected to the feeling, and it works both ways.
And that's what I've heard. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's amazing how it's so connected.
Yeah.
I mean that you can affect your own perceptions, your feelings through physical activity that mimics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it makes some sense because evolutionarily, from where that's where we come from. Like animals always have body positions that are like correlated with emotions, like tail down versus tail up for a dog, ears down, ears up.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that that's like really ingrained in us to have certain chemicals come out when you have a certain physical state.
Yeah. So neural pathways are activated, and of course it's the same pathway.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Well, anyways.
Long conversation.
Yeah, we've been an hour and a half now.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. I was about 20 minutes ago. I was 10 or 20. I was going to say it's been an hour. I was going to see if you wanted to stop.
Well, so Dr. Heinrich, could I ask, would you be interested in coming back and talking specifically about your experiences with your the ravens and all of the different things? Because I have 100 questions I would love to ask you, but I didn't know if you wanted to get into that. So if you sometime down the road would like to actually do that, because I would love to hear how you came about with some of these ideas and some of the ways you approached it and how long it took for you to get some of these, the results that you were looking. And also one question I've had all along as I've read your stuff is, what came first, your observation and what you were looking for? Or as you were observing, did you start seeing like, oh, I should probably look for this now? So I just have all these questions about how you did it and what your approach was. And like you said, people don't know about this stuff because they're not reading it, but talking about it and discussing it. So sometime, it would be great if you ever have time again to.
And biophilia. I'd like to talk about biophilia.
Oh my
we did
God!
Implicitly
we could,
today, but
we could be talking full time without stopping, 24 hours a day.
Well, yeah, to you, thankfully. Some people we couldn't talk to that much, but you're worth it.
It's very valuable. I mean, in so many ways, in different parts of life. It's just such a treat to talk with you, Dr. Heinrich. It's just amazing.
Well, thank you. I very much enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks.
It's great. Yeah.
That's a compliment. Thank you. Cool. But we'll let you go. Sorry to keep you over a little bit.
Enjoy the day.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you
Dr.
again
Heinrich.
very much for talking to us.
Yep.
You're
Take
gracious.
care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Melanie. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Bye. Thanks. All right. So that was a good conversation with Dr. Heinrich. I'm glad he was gracious enough to talk again, and hope folks got a lot out of that. Remember, we can think about what we said, but apply that to other areas of life, like parenting and teaching. People should think about what Dr. Heinrich is doing, kind of the stuff we're saying, questions you can ask, and apply that to students. Like Dr. Maria Montessori the great educationist from Italy, early 1900s, said, it's in her books, you can look it up, I got it quoted on my blog somewhere. She says, every teacher should be a scientist. And she doesn't mean that as some impartial thing watching other things like B.F. Skinner, the jerk. She loved her children. She wanted to do the best for them. She was passionate about education. So, she had the proper view of like being rational and scientific. It's something we should be passionate about and objective because it helps us live better. And same thing, that's what most parents, there's, the weird ones everyone knows about, abusers, but most parents want the best for their kids, and if we look at our children, scientifically, think about causes, like why are they doing this? Why do kids this age do this? How can we do better? How can we deal with this? Then, we'd be better off. And just like with the horses, if we start off really well, it'll prevent a lot of conflict and injury down the line. Any words, Melanie?
No, it's a lot. He's amazing. He's just got so much insight. Yeah. We need another couple times to really get some more. But yeah, exactly. You can, everything that, science is great because it applies to so many parts of your life. So yeah, to just consider it a textbook, you just open it, read, and then you close it, and now you just go back to living. I mean, it changes the way you look at the world if you really embrace knowledge and why things work the way they do, and your own children, like you said, learning how your kid, what is appropriate for a child who's 3 versus say 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And and if you work within that context, you'll have a much better experience as a parent, and they will grow up in a much healthier environment as well.
Yeah, and even stuff that people might not think of, like you're looking for answering why questions or how questions. So take seriously, why do I love my child? And think about the why, and that'll help you maybe clarify what it is to be a parent or what you want to do for your child. Maybe sometimes that'll help you because parents and children always get into arguments when it's the terrible twos or when it's the teenage years when they're trying to separate. And that's one thing I think would help if we realize that when kids are in their teenage years, it seems like there's some evolutionary drive, like in all other animals, to separate. And so sometimes the teenagers aren't talking back to be jerks or to hate you. They're just doing what they need to, even though they don't quite know it all, because we have a nature. We don't make up everything from whole cloth and free will. Free will works in context of our reason, which is in context of our nature, So they're doing what they need, like the kind of drive to separate and be independent. And so if we understand the why, then it's like, oh, it's not me, it's not personal. That's just what the kids have to do so they can be more confident and learn how to think on their own and deal with others and be independent in the world.
Yeah, think of all the relationships that would be much better if people understood where the other's coming from, for sure. Yeah,
it takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's good to deal with some animals, because then you can have this. Then it forces you to really be different about something. It's like not just another human, but whoa, this is a whole different other species I got to deal with. How do I deal with this whole other species, this individual of another species, not just another individual person? And that really helps give you some perspective. Or different aspects of like lifestyle, like why should we eat this? Does it help with their nutrition? What are the long-term consequences? Why would we want a dog? Why do we want a cat? How does it help us? And people find in many ways there's a lot of benefits to having a pet on their child's health and cognitive well-being, and benefits to being outdoors. Like the kid runs and plays in the rain instead of don't do that. Like, why is he doing that? How does it help? Is it good or is it bad? If we think about it scientifically, it'll be, and teachers do that too. It'd make a lot of make us, since we'd understand the world, we could deal with it better, and there'd be more achievement and less conflict. Or people could find, like, if teachers would ask, instead of just demanding that students pay attention, why are they tired at this time of day? Why are they more alert at this time of day? Because from what I've read, there's a change in the teenage brain from, I don't know, 14 till 23, 25 or something. And so kids go to bed earlier, and then the brain changes, so their time to go to bed, their internal clock changes, so instead of going to bed at 9, they can't go to bed till 11 or 12, and they get up later. And then when they're in the 20s, it shifts back to, 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And
right.
We should see from experience that that's occurring, and then we could find the cause, because science didn't make things real. Experience shows us they're real, and all science is doing is explaining it cognitively. Right. Just like Semmelweis, a physician, found that if people washed their hands before physicians, before they went to work with women who were in childbirth, who had given birth, then the risk of some diseases and deaths and the occurrence of them would go way down. He didn't know exactly why at the time, but it was a fact and it occurred. And unfortunately, because some people have a bad philosophy, they ridiculed him. I think he was driven out of his position and all this stuff, because these people thought, well, we're gentlemen, we're not dirty. How dare you say I should wash my hands? Stupid! That is immoral, unethical, illogical. They are fundamentally, philosophically wrong, obviously. Because look at, it worked. He didn't know why, but he knew something worked. The thing to do is recognize, yes, this works, and a gentleman, a rational person, figures out why. They don't laugh at something that works. That's not a gentleman. That's irrational. That's an anti-gentleman. That's an anti-person. And you can look at the fact that what do we do now? Physicians wash their hands before they go into surgery.
Yeah.
But, so it's a similar situation with some people maybe seeing that students are more alert at 11 than 8. You don't know why, but it's a fact. And then you can start to dig into the why and be scientific about it. Right?
Yeah, it's just laziness that people want to just sort of put everything in the same thing that they already know.
Yeah.
It's just totally irrational, and you will always find struggle. You'll have more struggle and conflict because of that, because you're going against nature.
Yeah.
And you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can try, but you'll be frustrated, and it'll cause a lot of stress and frustration. So.
Yeah. And people can ask. Go ahead, Melanie. What?
No.
But they can ask, in any battle between myself and reality, who's going to win?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Reality will always win.
It'll catch up.
Pardon? Yeah.
Said you might last a while, but eventually.
Yeah, not very long, yeah. And it depends how the breadth of the scope of the denial, if it's very limited,
right.
Reality will win, of course, but the wider the scope, the sooner you'll find out you're wrong.
Yeah.
But so, again, folks, the issue here is, in today's episode with Dr. Heinrich, is how we can be scientific in everyday life, and start out in nature. As he said in last episode, we love plants and animals and dogs and cats. We don't bring plants and animals into our homes and offices in the world for nothing. We know we love it and we're part of it. We evolved from that. We couldn't have evolved without that. We didn't evolve in isolation of plants and wasps and insects and bison and so on. They had to be here for us to come into being. Wasps to keep the insects under control, so there'd be plants for us to eat and herbivores to eat and for us to develop in the first place. And then snakes to control the mice and so on. But our evolution is dependent upon a complex biological world. It's the context we came about in and need for our survival. So I think that biophilia thing is also, that concept is also a part of what's going on.
Yeah.
You have anything to add, Melanie?
No. Just life is a constant understanding of that. So.
Yeah. Make mistakes. Pardon?
And an exciting one.
Yeah.
Rewarding. Yeah.
Make mistakes. Take responsibility for them. Make some mistakes on purpose, so you get to the point where you don't care about them anymore, and people are good with each other making some mistakes, and we learn how to deal with them, as long as they're not a fatal mistake or cause a big injury. But some mistakes are going to be made. We shouldn't hide them. We shouldn't deny it. We should learn from them and recognize it's part of our human experience. We're not omniscient. We're not omnipotent.
Yeah, in my music studio teaching students, I say, when you make a mistake, learn to play through it. Don't stop and say, oh, I know I made a mistake. Oh, no. I mean, you learn from the mistake by how to get through it, because we'll always make a mistake, but how you deal with that and move on sometimes is really the experience that you got from it. I mean, so I even explain to students, let that mistake happen and learn how to go on from it.
Yeah.
It's a good life, I guess.
So, any last words, Melanie? All right.
That was good.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed the podcast, and as we say, if you want some, if you're in Minneapolis or maybe somewhere where Melanie could help you via the internet about some theory or something, Melanie takes students in piano, and what are the different instruments, Melanie? Piano and what?
Clarinet, saxophone, flute.
And the bongo drums?
Some others. No.
Harmonica?
Yeah. Well, the ukulele was my most recent.
Not the bongo drums and not the harmonica, yeah.
Well, and I can say the same for Michael. I mean, not teaching music maybe, but just teaching such a great, wonderful addition to our curriculum here as homeschoolers with science, biology, especially. We're just totally different look at the world after having studied with Michael for this past year. So everybody should check him out. And it's great because we can Skype. We're in totally opposite ends of the country.
Yeah.
But it's not like...
Sorry, go ahead.
It's not like we're in opposites. I mean, we connect all the time. It works really well. So.
And then if people want some fitness training, I can help with that over the internet. You can make videos. You could see that. I do that more with Melanie's kids, but time is, and finances are limited and finite. There's only so much we can do. You got to decide what. So we got to stick to the science. I could do math with them. I could do fitness, but we have only so much time and so much money. So we got to pick certain things and go with that. Life is finite and limited. It can't be all unicorns and rainbows perfect, but we make the best of it. And then if people want help with some homeschool consulting, or teachers want some training, Melanie and I can help with that. How to teach better, how to homeschool better. Schools could contact us. Any words, Melanie?
Well, and even just if anyone has questions about parenting, I've been doing this for going on 2 decades now, and the kids are, I think I'd like to say they're turning out pretty well.
Yeah.
So, but there's a way to do it. There's a way to look at it, a way to think about it, so that it's as enjoyable as it possibly can be. So, yeah, we're here if anyone's interested in anything like that, for sure.
And we're not perfect. We're not saying that. We're always learning. We're not arrogant as some people are. We've learned a lot, and that's a fact. We know there's things we don't know, and we're learning and always getting more understanding and getting better. And then if you like the show, if you'd like to help support it, it costs a lot of money to get this Breaker thing, and sometimes we've had to have some of the episodes edited for us by some people, but we'll be getting something going in the future, maybe something on PayPal, so y'all can help out and contribute and donate if you'd like to. We'd appreciate it, but we'll talk about that whenever we get that done. But,
yeah,
hopefully it's of value to you and you want to help support it and keep it going.
Yep.
What, Melanie?
I said coming soon.
Yeah.
To a computer near you.
All right, so thank you, folks. Hope you appreciated this, and we will talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.